Go for it, go for it. I'm just saying I'm not finished yet. Search for it, swing for it. Discover the me that lives in yes. Stand for it, stretch for it. It's my time, imagine my best. Run for it, reach for it. Uncover the me that lives in yes. I know, yes I know. There'll be miracles wherever I go. It's not work, it's play. I can make magic today.
Hi everyone, welcome to Senior Nation. I'm your host, Pyllis Ayman, and you are listening to Source TV Radio Network, WTSN, Washington, D.C. We are indeed a senior nation with 100 plus million adults over the age of 50. And we are here to bring you up-to-date information from aging healthfully and gracefully to healthy longevity, to what I call becoming a well-ager, and dignity, respect, quality of life, and quality of care for our parents, grandparents, and loved ones. We at Senior Nation will be your trusted voice for informed choices, meaningful conversations, and a vibrant life at every age. Though the Source TV Radio Network is known for its dedication to bringing the highest quality of live jazz to the listening and viewing audience, the owners of the network are dedicated to bringing this important content to this fast-growing demographic. So I am so deeply grateful to have this opportunity, and let's begin today's show. I'm going to introduce my guest. Dr. Birgitte Tan has helped over 25,000 people move through heartbreak and to rediscover peace, purpose, and joy. A certified grief specialist, trauma response and life mastery coach, and former veterinary oncologist, Dr. Tan offers a practical, multidimensional method for navigating grief and healing, even when therapy or mindset work does not work. Her compassionate, evidence-based approach empowers people to navigate challenges and recover with more ease, even in causes of complex, prolonged grief. Dr. Tan's goal is to helping people thrive again. Her book, Seeking Peace, the proven 5-finger method to thrive through challenge effortlessly, became a bestseller. So I'm so pleased to introduce you to Dr. Birgitte Tan. Hi, Birgitte.
Hi, Pyllis. Thank you for the honor and delight to serve alongside you again.
Yes, we've had a history several times of interviews, and actually we wrote an article together several years ago. I interviewed you for an article for NCCDP, the National Council of Certified Dementia Practitioners, and recently we shared the stage on for Women's Month for the G100, right? And that was really, truly terrific. It was wonderful. So can you tell the listeners and viewers a little bit about, what a grief specialist is, what that means? Because I'm sure people don't really have a full understanding of what that is. They know what grief is. They know they're experiencing grief. And sometimes they don't. And we'll get into that a little later.
That's a wonderful question, Pyllis. And a lot of time, I'm going to frame it this way. A lot of time when people ask me, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a grief specialist," and they said, "Oh, how saddening! How do you stay afloat with all those?" And I said, yes, it is very heartbreaking when we're experiencing grief. But as a grief and trauma recovery specialist, as a grief specialist, you can focus on a grief, or what is it? What if you were to reach out to any grief specialist, to me? Why are you doing that? Are you doing that so you can stay in grief, or are you doing that so you can live again? So you can be able to feel joy again, or at least peace of mind again. So you're able to sleep at night through the night again. So you feel that you are able to breathe again, that you're able to navigate, that you're able to be present with your family. We're talking, this is for senior nations, to be able to be present for your children, to be present for your parents, to be present for your significant other, to be present for your grandchildren. What is grief specialist? What do is to help you from wherever you are, because life is life. Life happens, as you and I know. And by now, when you're like 50 and some, you're like, yeah, that's just reality of life. There's no illusion of walk in the park forever, right? And so, but life happens. But what is it that you do? What is it that I can help you such that you can easily and promptly, within months, not years, to be able to recover what it is that you feel is best for you, being alive, being fully alive again?
So, I have a question. Well, not really a question. One of the groups, I'll say, of people, because we all have our own individual grief. You lose somebody. It could be a variety of things. People grieve over losing a pet. I mean, it could be over losing a job. I think people don't even realize how much, different kinds of loss affect them. I remember reading once a long time ago, and you could tell me if this is true, that that selling a home and divorce are really ranked very high for loss, going through stages of loss. And I'm sure you know the stages of loss, as do I, Kubler-Ross's stages of loss, and denial, depression, anger, acceptance. But an area of concern for me, for people, and we have talked about this, is people who are part of the sandwich generation. And so I'll tell people what that is, what that term means if they don't know. But 70% of the sandwich generation is between now 40 and 59, which are prime work years, and also prime years for family. And so it's being caught between caring for an older parent or loved one, right? Job responsibilities and family responsibilities. And so you really feel what I call stretched, overwhelmed, and stretched. And so like you're in a vice. And so when we talk about grief, losing somebody, that's obvious, or maybe divorce, that's obvious. But you and I have also talked about grief in terms of, as a person, let's say if you have a parent or loved one in cognitive decline, losing the person, having a sense of grief because you're losing who they were or losing that relationship. But also, if you're part of this sandwich generation, people don't realize that they're grieving over the fact that they've lost their sense of, not sense of self, but they're so stretched, overwhelmed, and stretched that they don't even feel themselves anymore. They've kind of lost themselves in this routine and responsibility. So can you talk about that? I guess that was a long way around explaining it, but I hope that came across well.
Yeah, absolutely, Pyllis. Now, for our listeners, I would say, let me clarify. You are very much correct with all of the things that you mentioned about grief. Now, some people might say, wait a minute, selling home? What? What is he talking about? Now, the true definitions of grief is the unsettled feelings. So the feeling of unsettledness that you feel that is caused by either a loss, a change, or unmet hope. So let's say we use our example of selling home, having to move. And even if this is something you want to do, let's say all the kids grown up and you say, oh my goodness, we finally can go from the 6-bedroom house to the 2-bedroom and I can stop cleaning. So much, right? But even when you do that, that will involve a change. And many people, they go from one community where there is this 6-bedroom house community, they go to a different community and so forth. So there is a change. You will need to adapt and change. And even though, and then if anybody ever sell and buy house, you went through the whole series of things, right? And all of those can cause a lot of unsettled feeling. And then in the new community, you might say, oh, I miss that one and I miss this one. Oh, I love this one. Oh, this one does not come out as I thought. Oh, we thought the HOA will take care of everything and everything. But then turned out that this part wasn't taken care, and the neighbors that is much closer now because you don't have that 1 acre yard anymore is doing this. That could be hope unmet. So any of those can do that. And then talking about hope unmet, it could be a lot of other things. Perhaps we are aging gracefully, but you say, well, I'm not actually quite sure this is how I thought I'm going to look here at the age of 55 or something. Or perhaps it is something in the society, we talked about this a little bit in the G100 meeting the other day, something in the society you thought after the pandemic, 5 years ago, things will be this way and that way, it'll be recovered. And then you look around and you say, not that long ago, for instance, we could barely afford buying eggs.
Right.
And then before that, we could barely afford buying gas.
Right.
And that could be a cause of grief on top of everything else already in our life.
So,
and it is very...
I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to stop you. And because I remember something from when I interviewed for the article, and I want you to go into it a little bit. And then I did get a question here. And that is, you talked about, because I went back to read the article before this conversation, and you talked about double grief on top of grief. So you kind of just alluded to that. So can you talk about that a little bit? And then also, I just got this question. So is there something that's considered to be normal, let's say, for a magnitude of grief, an amount of grief, or a duration of grief? I mean, things are normal, different for each person, just like when you go through a grieving process for loss. But is there some way that you determine that? So first, let's talk about the double grief, and then let's talk about that.
Absolutely. We'll talk about all this. The first, the double grief, or the grief on top of grief is cumulative and cumulatively impairing. And so, in other words, you experience something and you did not navigate through that. You did not take care of that. So let's say it's a divorce that lead to a series of events. And in many, because you are busy, as you said, and the way the society go, and you say, you're going to go power through. And if this is an unpleasant situation, you better, start doing this and start doing that to prove yourself and get back that way. But perhaps there is a part of you that's still broken, that's still heartbroken and still hurt. Now, so something else happens. Grief is cumulative and cumulatively impairing. So that's why we want to take care of that. And you mentioned a little bit, sometimes even the grief of not necessarily losing your identity, but just losing of being able to be yourself.
Right.
Because you stretch so much. Your kids need this, your significant other need that, your parents need that, your work, your neighbor, and everything. And this is very funny. This is quite a timing, because this past weekend, actually, April 1st is the National Self-Care Day, as you might have known. And
Correct.
The interesting part is the same day, April 5th, April 5th is also National Love Your Children Day.
Oh.
And I look at it and I said, isn't that interesting? Because many times we say, we love our children or our parents or somebody, and therefore we're going to push and keep pushing ourselves for that person. But the truth is, if you keep pushing yourself and you have this and that happening and this and that, and you're just going to keep pushing, you're not taking care of yourself.
Correct.
And you and I know, Pyllis, that being human, eventually your body break down, even if you are
Correct.
mentally able to keep going. And then not only you become not taking care of yourself, not only you
Correct.
are become selfless, you kind of causing a lot of challenge to other people. So it definitely can cause a lot of grief, but also it is something we want to remember to allow ourselves. Being in the sandwich generation, it's very easy to get pulled around, to allow ourselves to do that. And to the so that is that. And the questions about how do we know if it is normal and how long in general, but that I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways. In general, grief, if it is, you are grieving to the point that it's impairing you. You're not just sad. Then in general, if you want to continue on, you want to seek out and reach help. There is no right or wrong answer on how long it is for somebody to grieve to one of the 40 different causes of grief, because everybody is different.
Right.
And at the same time, if it is impairing you, if over time you feel worse and worse and worse, then that's something you want to reach out. By definitions, according to the DSM-5, prolonged grief is grief that's been continuing on for 6 months and you're not feeling better.
So, yeah, interestingly enough, I just want to, if you don't mind, so I want to go back to the first thing you said about self-care, because many people, and I have, my own coaching program about resilience and continuing to thrive or age gracefully. And one of them is self-care. And as women, of course, we have we tend to become caregivers for everyone and leave ourselves behind. And I think, we grow up with the idea that self-care is selfish. It's actually not. It's actually imperative, right? And I'll just say, and I've said this several times before, my own daughter has been part of the sandwich generation, caring for her kids and her, my ex-husband, who now is, has moved into a memory care situation, and her, extreme job responsibilities. And she's sick every other month. She's sick. And I keep telling her, her body is breaking down. I say, your body is like your car, and you can't run your car on empty. Because it will break down. It will just stop running. And the same goes with your body. You have to find a way to replenish it. So, I mean, that's so crucial that you said that. And I do think it's interesting also that Self-Care Day comes before Love Your Children Day. I think that's very significant. Because it just goes to what you're saying and what I just said. You really have to care for yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like a message that if you love your children or your significant other, you need to take care of yourself. And some people will not like to hear this. Some people would not like to hear this, but I sometimes just like to speak the truth. And when you say self-care is not selfish, I would take it to the point that, and I mentioned this actually on my YouTube yesterday, that if you are grieving, because we know that when you are grieving, your body goes through a lot of changes biologically. There is massive inflammations going. Your brain go through a lot of changes. Your nervous system goes through a lot of changes. Grief is not only an emotional process. Grief is a physical process that your body go through. And we can spend hours talking about that. We don't need to. But knowing that, just think about it. It's just the word inflammations, right? Your body go through inflammations. When your body go through a lot of inflammations, it's weaken your immune system.
Correct.
And so if you are grieving and you're refusing to take self-care, because we are often in this society at least to believe that we got to push and push
Right.
ourselves to take care of everybody else. It's actually selfish.
Mm.
It's become selfish. Why? Because you already weaken. You're pushing yourself.
Mm.
Practically every client, as well as every chat, people who come to my chat, they come and say, oh, this and that. And I said, you got to take care of yourself. You need to help yourself, take rest and this and that. And the one that don't want to do that, they end up becoming ill. Like you said, your daughters become ill every other month, and that over times can get worse and worse. Okay, you got a little cold here, you got a little flu there. Next time, you got pneumonia.
Correct.
And you got a little headache here, and you got a little upset there, and then the next time you went into overwhelm. And
Correct.
when that happened, when you got to the point of you have flu and you got to take days off, when you got pneumonia and you take even longer time off, when you keep snapping at your children or your parents or your colleagues because you are so overwhelmed, it's creating a bigger damage. And in a way, with using self-care, when you are already grieving, when your bodies and your nervous system already compromises, it's a little bit selfish.
It's interesting that you said, it just made me think of something. And then, I want to talk about your book, and we'll show the picture of your book. But so my father died when I was 17. I'm sorry, when I was 17. And it was very sudden. I was sitting in a chair and he was sitting next to me. And 1 minute he was talking to me and the next minute he was gone. But I've used this through my life to really think about caring for yourself and personal responsibility. He was diabetic, and he did do some things he according to what he was supposed to do, but many other things he did not. My mother used to tell him and he didn't listen. And so several years ago, I wrote a chapter in a book. And the person who was interviewing me, I actually came to it during the conversation about that chapter, which is he actually didn't take personal responsibility for his own well-being. And in doing so, he not only failed himself, he failed us. So in a way, that's exactly what you said. In a way, that is a selfish thing. People think of selfish as only doing things for yourself, but the reality is it could be selfish not doing the right things for yourself. And then you're breaking down for the people around you that you really want to be caring for and showing up for 100%.
Yeah.
I just thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, my heart goes out to you for your loss, even if it is that long ago. Yeah. And at the same time, as you said, if he was not there because he didn't, and we never know life, right? Things could have happened anyway, but in a way that, it could things be different if he had done some other things.
Right, absolutely. So I want to show the picture of your book, the graphic that we have. It's a beautiful cover, seeking peace, and this proven 5-finger method you have. And I want you to talk about that so people could see it, and they could look for it on Amazon or any other platform where the book is listed. But can you talk about your proven 5-finger method, how you came up with that, and what exactly it is?
Absolutely, happy to. And the book is available on Amazon, where any country that Amazon is available. It is at this moment only in English. And how I came up to it is, as we know, it's the subtitles, the 5 fingers method to thrive through change effortlessly. Now, firstly, I actually want to coin in the word thrive. Many people, have you ever heard people say this, Phillips? I'm coping.
Right. Yes. Right.
I'm coping. I'm coping. Right. Coping or surviving is not thriving.
Ah, interesting.
So this is an invitation for you to thrive. Coping is kind of, I'm hanging in there by the thread, but I'm going to keep pushing and I'm going to keep going.
Right.
It's not thriving. So this is an
Right.
invitation, number one, for you to thrive. And the reason it's five fingers method, have you ever done this, Phillips, where you say you went to a seminar or something, perhaps a weekend seminar, and you very thrilled, all good lessons in there, and then a week down the road you say, yeah, I'm trying to remember what they think. What did they think about that? And then by the month, a month later, you kind of remember maybe vaguely one thing in the seminar. Never mind applying everything in there. So if you human are by natures, we will forget 90+% of things that we read or hear once. And so most of us been through a lot of personal development and life navigation tool, and we learn about a lot of different things. But then we actually a lot of time forget about it, never mind applying it. The five fingers come in such that each of these each of the tools that you learn here are related to your fingers. So you can use your toes, you don't have to use your fingers, but the goal for that is to make it a lot easier for us, for anyone who read this book, to remember, oh yeah, the thumb or the big toes is associated with 1, 2, 3, and the second finger, the pointer fingers is associated with that. And yes, we talk about the middle finger in there. We must include the middle finger, right? Of course.
Which could have a variety of meanings or reasons to use, but we won't go there.
You'll discover it in the book. And so it is to help us remember. And the book is meant to help, as we said earlier, life is life. And you'll find different sections of the book apply to different aspects of challenges in the life that you are navigating.
Right. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So I encourage people, to get this book. And yeah, I think it probably is a great way to remember it. Whatever the 5 elements are that you lay out in the book, it's, maybe even looking at your hands sometimes can help you remember, because your hands are with you all the time for the most part, right? And you can look at them and say, oh, wait a minute, and maybe you do want to use that middle finger, whatever it is on the middle finger. But
right.
Yeah, what I mean?
Whichever then on middle finger. I'm giving an example here, for instance, with the with pointer fingers. So what is pointer fingers for? This is the book for navigating life adversities, grief, and challenges. Well, a couple things. In terms of grief, the pointer fingers, that's the most important, is to look at that and to help you think about fingerprint.
Right.
And why we point that out, because many times if we are going through things as we are grieving, we notice a lot of time people say, you should do this. Well, don't feel that way. You should be grateful. Anybody hear this?
Oh, I've heard that so many times.
You should be doing that. Oh my God, it has been 3 months. Why aren't you feeling this way? And all this should.
Right.
When it comes to grief, there is no should. Your feeling is always valid.
It's interesting.
Everyone grieves differently. So your finger can help you remember, just like your fingerprint meant to be unique. You meant to be unique.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that about should, because I decided several months ago to try and eliminate the word should from my vocabulary. And it's not like anything else, any other practice or habit you want to change, unless you're mindful at all times. It's not easy to remember. I do catch myself sometimes, and then I'll rephrase what I wanted to say, because people don't want to hear should. So, the words I try and use instead is, you may want to consider, or how about this, or have you thought about this, or this is something that's worked for me. I don't know if it will work for you, but maybe you want to try it. see if it can help you. I've tried to couch my, my suggestions with those kinds of, I don't want to call them euphemisms, but rather than telling people what they should do, because, I know what I should do in a lot of cases, and I'm not doing that either. So who am I to tell somebody else what they should do? So I think that's very valuable. What you just
I
said.
love I love when you say that just now, Phillips. I know what I should do. So yes, many times we hear people saying, you should do this, you should do that, which people saying should to us. But at this opportunity, if it's okay with you, Phillips,
Yeah, sure.
I would also send an invitation to our listener to check in and say, how many times do you shoot yourself? I should do this. I should do that. I should do that. And then all this shoot that you should do.
Right.
And there are, of course, we all have responsibilities, but the shoot, by just telling even yourself, I should do this. If you really don't want to do it, maybe you don't want to do it.
Right.
Otherwise, maybe you choose to do it. Maybe you
Correct.
want to do it.
Right. Or what we shouldn't do and choose to do anyway. I did something last night. I was in an event and I ate appropriately, and I knew I shouldn't have had that little brownie at the end in the cookie because I had some ice cream the day before, and I'm very careful about sugar, and because my father was diabetic and I am very mindful of my weight, and I really make a concerted effort, but I did it anyway. So talk about what you should do and shouldn't do, right? Of course, now, moving forward for the next few weeks, I won't do anything like that. So, I mean, it's not that. Also, I think we have to forgive ourselves sometimes when we know we should do something or shouldn't do something and don't do it. Because we could be very hard on ourselves. And I will ask you this question. You could really start to grieve over the fact that you haven't lived up to your own commitment that you made to yourself. Would that be something that would be included in terms of the explanation for grief? I don't know. I just thought of it, actually.
If you really start to turn it into a cycle of causing you feel worse and worse and worse, then yes, one of the three keys of the grief is unmet hope. So if you have high expectations of yourself, which many of us do, and
Right.
you said, well, I should have a mansions by the age of 55, and I should have that many $1 million in the bank, and I should have been doing this and have perfectly 3.5 children.
Right.
And so forth, and all this should, and I should be size 2 and 5'6", and so on and so forth. Then you're going to start piling up on unmet expectations, perhaps unrealistic, but unmet expectations on yourself. And if you keep tuning into that, and I shoot this and I shoot that, oh my gosh, I should have run exactly 11.5 miles, but I only make it to 10. Then yes, over time you're accumulating unmet expectation on yourself, and this is why if we start hearing ourselves, I should do this, I should do that, or I shouldn't. Well, in your case, you can say, oh man, I shouldn't have eat that cookie and brownie at all. I really shouldn't, and now I really feel really really bad about that. And what an irresponsible I am, how loser I am. Or you can say, well, you know what? I choose, because they look just so yummy and it's a one-time thing. I choose to eat that cookies and brownie. Right. And now, instead of I should not eat anymore anything, well, now I want to be mindful and not eat anything else. Just the feeling that you got from changing right. The word can be so much different.
Yeah. So I would say it's all about mindset and just what you said, expectations. So I was laughing because there are certain expectations you have that are just unrealistic. I mean, so it's funny to me when you said about size 2, or I'd like to, or 5'6", because those are unrealistic. Now, in reality, I would love to be a size 4, and I would love to be about 5'5", but that's not going to happen in this lifetime. It's just not feasible. It's not possible. So I might as well let go of that. But I do think there are people, and I have to be honest with you, for a long time, I did hold that. I'm just being honest. I'd say, gee, I wish I looked like that, or I wish I'd looked like that. And, for whatever reason that is, and that could go back to childhood grief, which you talk about this, that you've had a lifelong grief, which kind of led you to this. And I wanted to ask you about that, because I have had that, and it's only in the most recent years that I've been able to get past some of that. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, about childhood grief, definitely.
Yeah.
I experienced grief since I was 5 years old. My earliest memories was things that relate to grief. And the good news with childhood trauma and grief, and this could be when sometimes we think about, when we hear about childhood grief and trauma, we think about child abuse during childhood, physical or emotional, but it could also be something else that happens, such as a loss. And sometimes, many times, people don't realize this. It could also be something highly impactful that you see. So if you live in a war zone, many people who I know many people whose family, they move with their family, whose family are forced in a way. They choose to live, but because of the living situation is so unbearable, they live in a war zone, they live in the situations that there is absolutely no opportunity. They are in a way forced to move to somewhere else, and then they move. All of those can cause a lot of grief. Being a child, and you just start learning this and that, and then here comes second grade, and your second grade is in transition somewhere.
Right.
That can cause a lot of grief. And the good news is, doesn't matter how long it has been, it is possible to move through. And to, now again, not every grief, every situations need to be addressed. And there are things that happen, if it does not disrupt your life in any manner, and you have a wonderful, beautiful life, you don't need to start digging everything.
Right.
The difference, as you know, Phillips, the difference between coaching and some other modalities, where we are realistic, we look at what's going on, but we're forward thinking, not backward thinking, trying to dig everything. But for instance, if you nowadays say, you know what, I just realized that the way I have been this way and that way, and this way and that way, that is a realization come from actually that incompletely resolved situations when I was 5, and when I was this, and when I was that. It's never too late. It's always possible to address that in prompt manner. And if your result is not what you would like to be, perhaps your relationship results, or even the work result, then you want to allow yourself to say, is there an influence? A lot of time it's a subconscious influence that makes us behave in one way or the other.
Interesting. So now you also have a program, and we have a beautiful graphic that you sent me about dancing, how you've created a program about using dancing to help, move you to a different place. And I no pun intended about moving, but movement does help you move through a variety of situations, not just emotional movement, but physical movement. I mean, I took up ballroom dancing many years ago, and I love it. And the it's not just the endorphins, but it's the experience of, moving your body through space, and has a tremendous positive effect. So I just want people to see this beautiful graphic that you sent me. And then can you talk a little bit about, the dancing, to find, dancing through sadness, really? What is dancing away sadness, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And dance away sadness, move beyond your grief. Sometimes there is a part of grief that words cannot touch, particularly the really deep part of grief where you just, and we talk about childhood griefs just now. Many times when we are going through things, particularly as children, we push them away. We do, and this is a survival skill. If you can't resolve it at the time, you push them away, you bury them. But it does not mean things that's buried is not gone, right? Things that buried is not gone. And it's kind of like if you bury a worm, it might sit in there for a little time, but then over time, it will start causing a lot of problem. And so it start finding its ways out. Sometimes I use the analogy of burying something extremely painful, and to the point that your conscious memory actually forget about it. It's like burying some radioactive material. You buried it as deep as you could, but it doesn't mean that it's gone, and it's continue to release into your life. And so at the same time, though, this thing that buried so deep, sometimes it can be very challenging for us to get in touch with it, to be able to put it in words, never mind to be able to release that. That's one. And then the other part of dance away sadness, move beyond your grief, is it's also depend on people. Some people personality. For some people, when we're going through things, we're lost at words. We just can't put it into words. And this is something that happened with me some 20 years ago, where I said, I was in so much pain, but I just could not put it in words. And if you were to go to a therapy or a coaching or something, and they said, oh, let's talk about it, I will be like sitting there staring at you because I'm like, I can feel it so deeply and so badly, but I have no words for that. And so dance away sadness combine gentle coaching, freestyle movement, guided but freestyle movement, as well as music. And all these combined, we mentioned briefly how grief impacted us physically. In a way, but when grief happened, they go into your cells. Nowadays, we know through studies that grief even changes your DNA.
Really?
So when you have something going on, and if you allow it to continue on, it changes you, cause your inflammations, changes in your body, changes in your brain, changes in your nervous system, as well as to the point it changes your DNA.
Wow. I did not know that.
And that's very true. And it's Dr. There's a known speaker and author called Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he put it very well that grief gets into your cells. And that's very true. The DNA is in your cells. Grief get into your cells. It's changed your cells. And so what is one best way, if it got into your whole physical body, what is one easy way, easy and pleasant, right, to get your body to kind of release it? It's by moving. Moving in the way that your heart leads you, moving in the way that comfortable for you. And it could be just tapping your fingers. I have people who are experiencing they're going through cancer. They don't have a lot of energy, and all they could do is tap their fingers and feet. But to move some part of your body, and we know through studies how music changes the vibrations of our cells and our nervous system. And so when you do the movement, you allow the music to change the vibrations of yourself, your nervous system, the way your nervous system firing. And through the coaching at the same time, that's allow people to release grief, either because they can't put it into words or something that is so deeply buried.
I had the pleasure, honor, I don't even know which way to say it, back in 2021 to hear Joe Dispenza speak. And it was really quite powerful. Also, didn't Joe Dispenza, isn't he in the film or part of the film, What the Bleep Do You Know? I mean, I think so. But, you know, it talks a lot about that. Your brain, there is a book, Your Brain on Music. You know, it is very well known how, you know, music impacts your brain. There's a program called Music and Memory. And it's, if anybody's interested, for people with Alzheimer's or advanced Alzheimer's or dementia. And it was created by someone called Dan Cohen. And it's based on your brain on music to some extent, well, to a large extent, really. And, you know, the program is for somebody who, let's say, is, you know, cognitively very impaired and can't communicate that well, and they haven't been communicating, but when they play music that they used to love, music, you know, from their past, the things they love, their personalized music, they actually come alive. And the documentary is called Alive Inside. It can be streamed on Amazon and many places. But yeah, I did not know, however, that it could actually change your DNA. You know, grief and all this long-standing issues that your body goes through. I do know it can affect inflammation, it can affect your nervous system, your brain. I mean, but I didn't know that it actually can go to the cell level and change your DNA. I mean, that's powerful.
We see the change in DNA methylations, and you might have heard the term of transgenerational grief.
Yes.
And that's how it is. It's grief that, say, your great grandparents experienced because of whatever it was, and then that grief goes through in the DNA, passed through your parents, through your grandparents. They experience things, they add it to the DNA,
right?
And then they go to your parents, and they experience, you know, the depressions or the war or who knows what, any of those, and get passed to your DNA as well. And now you experience all the things that you experience now living in this today's world. And the question is, would you want to continue that to go on in your next generation? And if the answer is no, the Grief Recovery Institute says we all have a 1% responsibility. And that is to take the action.
Interestingly enough, when you talk about transgenerational grief, now I'm sorry, I do not remember his name. I do have his book here on my bookshelf in the next room. But he was, if I remember correctly, the grandson of Viktor Frankl, if I remember correctly. And Viktor Frankl, who's the, you know, well known for his books, and why can't I think of the name of it right now? You probably will might be able to remember the name, but he was he was in a concentration camp, and he wrote I think, was he a psychologist or a neuropsychologist or psychiatrist before he was in the concentration camp? And he wrote these books about you know, survival and this fellow, like I said, I don't remember his name, but I think it was his grandson wrote a book about this transgenerational grief. And I heard him speak several years ago. It was really fascinating. It's just exactly what you said. It's passed down. And many times when it's not even discussed, especially people he had said, you know, from the concentration camps, they don't even talk about those experiences. So they're really held inside. And that's really how it's passed down. There are secrets, and it changed their DNA. And like you said, then it goes and changes the next generation's DNA. It's fascinating. And I didn't realize it until I heard him. And now that you said changes your DNA, it really struck me. I never realized that. How deep it really goes.
And it can be very disheartening information to hear, but also we can take things as something to dishearten us and say, oh my God, so I'm just completely done, you know, I'm hopeless. Or we can say, okay, well, with that information, let's make sure that does not continue in me. And even if, let's say, your children are adult now, it is absolutely possible for you and your children and to be able to say, what can we do now to take care of this? What can we do now so I don't continue to carry grief that influence my health? And what can my children do so they don't keep going this and the grandchildren so they don't pass it to continuing on to the next generation?
Correct. And I looked it up while we're talking because it bothered me so that I didn't remember the name of Viktor Frankl's book, which is very well known, Man's Search for Meaning. And I would encourage people, if they're interested, to look it up and read it, because it really is, it's really eye-opening to read that book. So, we're coming to the end. What final words would you have for listeners and viewers? And if you want to, tell people where they can contact you, that would also be terrific, because you have such valuable knowledge and ways of working with people that can really help them. And I say, just like you say, you have to move through this. This is a process. This is not just something that you go and talk to somebody and, okay, great, I'm better now. It takes work. And you have to be willing to do that work. And it's simple, really, but it's not easy. But it's also a dedication. It depends how you want to feel about yourself, right? So what would be your parting words or advice, and any contact information you'd like to share?
Thank you, Phillips. I love what you say, that grief, when it's a pronounced grief, it's not something you get over. Kind of like some people get over it. It's not something you get over. You move through and move forward from it. Sometimes impactful things happen. You carry it with you. But how are you living your life? Are you living your life fully present again? Or are you living your life shadowed by this event? Because it is honoring. Let's say it's a loss of a loved one. It is very honoring for the person whom you lost, for you to continue carry them in you, but living your life to be fully present and to be fully at ease, in a way that you actually able to honor them and share with them more. And I would say my parting word is, sometimes when we are going through things, it can be very easy to feel everything is hopeless, to feel that things are just, we just cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. This is springtime, and we know now that springs is of all time of the year, springs has the highest suicide rate. And so
Really? Why is that? May I stop you and ask you why that is?
There are a couple theory on why it is. One is sometimes the change of time can disrupt our biology. Keep in mind, grief influence our biology. So if we're going to change and then change again. And sometimes people goes into these things of, maybe it's the new year and things going to be different, and I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that. And then several months passes by and they say, it's looking worse than last year. It's just no hope anymore. And a lot of the multiple different theories on why, but we do know spring tend to have the highest suicide rate. Some people think it's holiday. It's actually not. It's actually the springtime, mid-springs to very early summer. And if a loved one that is having a tough time, sometimes it can be very challenging to feel that there is light at the end of the tunnel. But just know that sometimes grief makes us not able to think and see clearly, but there is help if you keep reaching out. And therefore there is hope. And talking about reach out, you asked for my contact information. I can be contacted through several different ways. My website is joyfulrichesbeyondgrief.com. So you can connect with me at joyfulrichesbeyondgrief.com. You can also connect with me directly if you choose to by emailing me. And the email is drtanforgrief@gmail.com. So it's DRTAN, the word for, FOR, grief@gmail.com. So those are ways to connect with me.
Well, thanks so much. And I hope that listeners and viewers will take the opportunity to reach out to you, because I know there are many people who, are grieving, and obviously, you'd be able to help them. And I hope they would take advantage of that. So, Brigitte, I can't thank
And as an honor, can I interject really quick?
Sure.
As an honor to you, Pyllis, anyone who reach out to me, as long as they mention you or the show, I'm happy to offer complimentary consultation. Initial consultation.
That's so kind of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brigitte, for joining me on Senior Nation. I mean, it's been eye-opening for me as well. I learned so much, whether it's about the DNA or other things that you shared. I mean, and it, like I said, there are a couple of things that made me think about selfishness. And so I'm sure, listening to you, that listeners and viewers, who hear this will have their own realizations, and maybe, realize that, gee, maybe it's time, whether they reach out to you or read a book or just start to think about, how the situations they're facing is affecting them, they're physically, emotionally, and not only for them, but for generations. So this has really been terrific. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome, Pyllis. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Please join me next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Senior Nation, to hear my conversation with my next guest, Rubina Chaudhry. Rubina, who I've known for many years, she is an entrepreneur, an engineer, an innovator, an advocate, and philanthropist, and who was at the forefront of starting a nonprofit, a community service organization for seniors in California, so they can continue to live, learn, and thrive the best way they possibly can. So remember to join me next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Senior Nation, and to comment and question. And so until then, take care, stay well, and stay tuned.
Go for it. I'm just saying I'm not finished yet. Search for it, swing for it, discover the me that lives in, yes. Stand for it, stretch for it. It's my time, imagine my best. Run for it, reach for it, uncover the me that lives in, yes. I know, yes I know, there'll be miracles wherever I go. It's not work, it's